Good day, Philippines. I am Daphne Feliz Concepcion.
And I'm Hussein Laya. Welcome to WR News, bringing you information about the works of Rizal. Today, in WR News, we will examine the works of our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, so that we can imbibe the virtues he exemplified and be inspired to follow his sense of nationalism and patriotism.
Noli Tangere as an instrument in creating a unified Filipino national identity and consciousness.
Important characters in Noli Tangere and what they represent. For the first headline,
Are Filipinos lazy or are they just unmotivated?
Noli Tangere is a novel by Filipino polymath and national hero Dr. Jose Rizal and was first published in 1887 in Berlin. Noli Tangere is a Latin word that Rizal took from the Bible, meaning touch me not, in John 20 verse 17. Early English translations used titles like An Eagle Flight in 1990 and The Social Cancer in 1912. But more recent translations have been published using the original Latin title. The novel is credited with the awakening of nationalism among Filipinos during Rizal's time. For the summary of the novel, we will have reporter Lara Francisco.
As for the plot summary, Noli Tangere surrounds the story when Juan Crisostomo Ibarra y Magsalin comes back to the Philippines after completing his studies in Europe. In his honor, Captain Tiago hosted a get-together party that was attended by friars and other prominent figures. In an unfortunate turn of events, former San Diego curate Fray Damaso belittled and slandered Ibarra, but Ibarra ignored the insults and took no offense. Before Ibarra left for San Diego, he learned about the events leading up to Don Rafael Ibarra's death from Guardia Civil Lieutenant Guevara. The lieutenant claims that Don Rafael was falsely accused of being a heretic and a subservient due to Don Rafael's lack of participation in the sacraments. Damaso's animosity towards Ibarra's father is furthered by another incident in which Don Rafael assisted in a fight between a tax collector and a child, and the latter's death was attributed to him even though it was not deliberate. Suddenly, all of those who thought ill of him surfaced and with additional complaints. He was imprisoned, and just when the matter was almost settled, he died of sickness in jail. Ibarra had no aspirations of vengeance. Instead, he followed his father's plan to build a school, believing that education would pave the path of his country's growth. During the school's inauguration, Ibarra would have been killed in sabotage if Elias had not warned him about the assassination plot. Following the inauguration, Ibarra threw a luncheon during which Damaso insulted him once more. Ibarra was initially oblivious to the priest's impudence, but when the latter insulted the memory of his deceased father, he was unable to control himself and leaped towards Damaso, ready to stab him. As a result, Damaso excommunicated Ibarra and used the situation to convince the already hesitant Tiago to stop his daughter from marrying Ibarra. The priest wanted Maria Clara to wed Linares, a peninsular who had recently arrived from Spain. But as fate would have it, Ibarra was falsely accused of some occurrence he had no knowledge of, leading to his arrest and imprisonment. The accusation against him was eventually dismissed since no one could prove that he was actually involved in the litigation that followed. Unfortunately, Ibarra's letter to Maria Clara got into the hands of the jury and was turned by Fray Salvi into evidence against him. Salvi framed Ibarra and ruined his life to prevent him from marrying Maria Clara and making her his concubine. For the continuation of the summary of the novel, we have reporter Kyle Angela Adele.
Thank you, reporter Lara Francisco. The novel continues when a party was being organized at Capitan Tiago's house to announce Maria Clara and Linares' forthcoming wedding. Ibarra used this chance to escape from prison with the help of Elias. But before departing, Ibarra confronted Maria Clara and accused her of betraying him, believing she had given the jury the letter he had written to her. Maria Clara said that she would never conspire against him, but that she was obliged to give Father Salvi the letter in return for letter written by her mother before she was born. The letter were written by her mother, Pia Alba, to Damaso, implying that Maria Clara was not Capitan Tiago's legitimate daughter but Damaso's. Following that, Ibarra and Elias departed by boat. Elias told Ibarra to lie down and cover his face with grass to hide his presence, but they were still discovered. Elias jumped in the sea thinking he could outwit them. The guard opened fire on him, not realizing they were targeting the wrong man. Maria Clara was filled with grief after believing that Ibarra had been killed in the shooting incident. She requested Damaso confine her in nunnery, having lost all hope. Damaso reluctantly consented after she threatened to commit suicide and said, "The nunnery or death." Ibarra, unbeknownst to her, that was still alive and being able to flee, as it was Elias who had taken the shot. Elias, who is fatally wounded, woke in the forest where he instructed to Ibarra meet him, but instead discovered the altar child Basilio clutching his deceased mom Sisa. When she learned that her two boys, Crispin and Basilio, had been forced out of monastery by the sacristan mayor on suspicion of stealing sacred item, she went insane. Elias, believing that he will die soon, ordered Basilio to construct funeral pyre and burn his and Sisa's body to ashes. He tells Basilio that if no one arrives at the location, he shall return and dig for gold. He also instructs Basilio to take the gold and he discovered and return to school. In his dying breath, he told Basilio to keep dreaming of independence for his motherland, saying, "I shall die without seeing the dawn break upon homeland. You who shall see it, salute it. Do not forget those who have fallen during the night." Elias died soon after. Tiago became hooked to opium and was spotted frequenting the opium house in Binondo to fulfill his addiction, according to epilogue. Maria Clara also became a nun, and Salvi, who has lasted after her since the beginning of the novel, exploited her to satisfy his lust regularly. One stormy evening, a beautiful insane woman was seen on the top on convent, wailing and cursing the heaven for the fate that he been dealt with her. While the woman was never named, it was speculated that she was Maria Clara. That's all for the summary of Noli Me Tangere. Again, I am reporter Kyle Angela Adel from WR News.
Thank you, Miss Francisco and Miss Adele, for sharing the summary of Noli Me Tangere. For the next headline, we have reporters Janine Malaluan and Jill De La Cruz discuss the important characters in the novel and what they represent.
For the important characters in the novel, of course, first, we have the protagonist in the story. Juan Crisostomo Ibarra y Magsalin, commonly known as Ibarra or Crisostomo in the novel. He is the son of Don Rafael Ibarra, a Filipino businessman. He exemplified the vision that Dr. Jose Rizal had aimed for the youth, hence, several sources attributed him as Rizal's reflection. Maria Clara de los Santos y Alba is Ibarra's fiancée. She represents the innocence and purity of a woman. Later in the novel, it was revealed that she was an illegitimate child of the Wapa Alba, Capitan Tiago's wife, and Father Damaso, a previous parish priest in the town. Leonor Rivera, the first cousin and childhood sweetheart of Rizal, served as the inspiration for the character of Maria Clara. Padre Damaso Verdolagas is a Franciscan friar and former parish curate of San Diego. He is primarily known for being a notorious guy who speaks harshly and has been a cruel priest during his time in town. He is Maria Clara's biological father. He is also Rafael Ibarra's rival and continually antagonizes Ibarra throughout the novel. Padre Damaso symbolizes the Spanish friars of Rizal's time. Elias is Ibarra's mysterious friend. He portrays a common Filipino who is not only conscious of their countrymen's atrocities, but also wishes to liberate them from their oppressors. Padre Bernardo Salvi is the Franciscan curate of Santiago, secretly harboring lust for Maria Clara. He and Padre Damaso devise a plan to break Ibarra and Maria Clara apart. Padre Salvi symbolizes the lecherous priors of Rizal's Filosopotasio, also known as Filosopotasio, sought political reforms and to spread awareness of the oppression and exploitation of the invaders. He communicates his ideals on paper in a cryptographic alphabet similar to hieroglyphs and Coptic figures, hoping the future generation may be able to decipher it. Crispin and Basilio are both Caesar's sons. It is not directly stated in the novel that Crispin was killed, but Basilio's dream implies that he died during his encounter with Padre Salvi. The injustice this endured at the hands of the authorities throughout their life was muted by their deaths and the subsequent cover-ups. Both Crispin and Basilio represent the innocents who had been wrongly accused of a crime they did not commit. For more information about the other characters in the novel, here is reporter Jewel May de la Cruz.
Thank you, Miss Malaluan. In the novel, we also have characters that portray the pervading social cancer in the novel of Rizal. First, we have Capitan Tiago, who is a rich native-born Filipino that is known as the father of Maria Clara in the novel. He symbolizes the rich Filipinos who oppress their fellow countrymen in exchange for the social status and wealth that they might gain from the powerful associations. Doña Consolacion is an older Filipina woman married to an ensign. Her excessive admiration to the Spaniards leads her to imitate the very actions and attitudes of Spanish women and even pretends to not remember her native language, Tagalog, and instead speaks Spanish poorly. Doña Consolacion represents the Filipinos in the society who are ashamed of their race and nationality. Doña Victorina was a socialite and Capitan Tiago's acquaintance. She and her husband, Don Tiburcio, wanted to become friends with the influential people in San Diego to raise their social standing. She classifies herself as Spanish and mimics Spanish ladies. She symbolizes those who have distorted view of their identity as everything that is native is inferior and everything foreign is superior. Don Tiburcio is the husband of Doña Victorina, who was known for charging exorbitant fees for his medical treatment. His character is a perfect example of the evil Spanish rule during Rizal's time, who deceived the Filipinos of the truth just for their selfish desires. That would be all for the important characters in Noli Me Tangere. Again, this is Jewel May de la Cruz from WR News.
Thank you, Miss Malaluan and Miss De La Cruz for sharing the characters in the novel and what they represent. Now, let's move to the next headline.
The Indolence of the Filipinos is an exploratory essay written by Jose P. Rizal and published in La Solidaridad on July 15, 1890 to prove that Filipinos are not innately born to be indolent. Rizal presented several reasons for the indolence of the Filipinos in the present state and also emphasized the role of Spanish rule in the intensification of the indolence of the Filipinos. For the details about the essay, The Indolence of the Filipino, we have our reporter Mary Joy Mirano.
The indolence of the Filipino is the study of the cause of why people did not, as what's said, work hard during the Spanish regime. Rizal pointed out that long before the coming of the Spaniards, the Filipinos were industrious and hard-working. The Spanish reign brought about a decline in economic activities because of certain causes. First, since the foundation of the Galilean trade cut all the prior association of the Philippines with other countries in Asia and Middle East, the Philippines' first business was only with Spain through Mexico. As a result, small businesses and industries that thrived prior to Spanish conquest progressively faded. Second, as a result of the wars, Filipino were forced to work in shipyards, roads, and other public work projects, abandoning agriculture, industry, and trade. The governors also used the Filipino as crews for the vessels they sent out, but it was never made known whether or not they ever returned. Third, Spain failed to defend its citizens against pirates and outside invaders. The natives were slain, their homes were forced, and their fields were ruined because they lacked the means to protect themselves. This caused the Filipino to lose interest in farming their land or in reopening the enterprises that had been closed, and they instead surrendered to God's grace. As a result, there was a decrease in the number of the Filipinos living in the Philippines. Fourth, there was a corrupt educational system. Repetitive prayers and other lessons that could not be applied to advance the nation were being taught in the school. In those times, there were no courses in agriculture, industry, or other fields that the Philippines sorely need. Fifth, the Spanish rulers and officials were reported to work at noon and left early, all the while accomplishing nothing in accordance with their duty. The women were also seen constantly followed by servants who dressed them and fanned them, which could not be done by themselves. Sixth, gambling was unknown in the Philippines before, but when the Spaniards arrived, it was established and became widely spread. On the feast days, government officials and friars were the first to place bets and gamble. Seventh, there was a corrupt religious system. The friars taught the naive Filipinos that it was easier for a poor man to enter heaven, so they advised their poor parishioners to stop working in mines, abandon their industries, and destroy their looms. Lastly, because of the selfish and greedy encomenderos who put Filipinos into slavery, they forced Filipinos to work for them and forced them to sell their product at an insignificant price or for nothing. Additionally, taxes were so high that a huge amount of their earnings went to the government or the friars. That's all for the cause of why there was a decline in economic activities during the Spanish reign. Again, this is Mary Joy Mirano reporting.
Thank you for discussing the essay. To conclude what reporter Mirano had shared, Rizal stated that indolence is a chronic illness and an illness will worsen if the wrong treatment is given. Rizal sought to inspire and enlighten the people, that's why he studied the causes of indolence before actually curing it. He stated in his essay that while indolence does exist among Filipinos, there are a variety of causes behind it. Rizal wanted us to recognize that Filipino idleness was not the reason of the Philippines' delayed progress or backwardness. Rather, it was the product of mistreatment and discrimination, government inefficiency, pervasive corruption, and incorrect religious beliefs during the Spanish era in the Philippines. With his essay, he defended Filipinos by stating that they are not indolent by nature because they have been engaged in economic activities such as agriculture and trading long before the Spaniards arrived. He then offered a solution, which is the education and the formation of what he called a national sentiment. And I am Daphne Feliz Concepcion from WR News, bringing you pieces of information about Rizal's works.
In addition to what Ms. Concepcion had mentioned, another factor that may have contributed for this indolence is the Filipino people's lack of unity. In the absence of unity and oneness, the people lack the ability to oppose the government and other societal forces. There would also be no voice, no leader to sow and cultivate progress so that it may be reaped in due time. Moreover, there were no schools when Filipinos sought to study and learn, and if there were, they lacked resources. There was also little to no finance from the government and no protection for Filipinos who wished to create their own businesses. And when Filipinos attempted to cultivate their lands and establish numerous enterprises, they were forced to pay exorbitant taxes and were oppressed by foreign authorities. To end, The Filipino people that have lost their sense of dignity should not take all the blame for losing their drive to work hard, especially if they have been prevented from reaping the benefits of their own hard work. That's all for today's news, and again, I'm Susain Anlaya.
And I am Daphne Feliz Concepcion from WR News, bringing you pieces of information about Rizal's works.